Hi y'all, welcome to Sewing with me. Today I'm going to be getting this pink gingham fabric made into pants because I tend to buy a lot of fabric and then it sits on my shelves and it never gets made into anything, yet I am pinning so many things on Pinterest as options for what I can create. So using these as my inspo photos, I am following the Vivian pattern and going to make some really cute pink gingham pants just so I can have my Pinterest wardrobe. Let's get started.
Okay, so getting started with the first step, which is cutting out the pattern. Again, I'm using the Vivian pattern. I bought it on Etsy, so I have a link for that in the description. Luckily, it was really easy to select my size and print it using the PDF layers just so the lines are super clean, there's not a bunch of them. This part of cutting out the pattern, though, definitely did take the longest. I don't know about y'all, but cutting out the pattern, I start out being like, I'm gonna line this up so well, I'm going to cut it out so precisely, and then by the end, I'm so lackadaisical about how I'm cutting it out. Are they lined up perfectly? Definitely not. But this is definitely the step that took the longest of the whole pattern. Construction and sewing and everything, because it took me approximately an hour to cut out the whole pattern, but I think it could definitely go faster if you're a little bit more chill about the lining up, especially for the beginning. You'll see that I get more into a system when I start to do the bottom of this pant leg and then also the actual like back of the pants. So sometimes you just gotta give up on being super precise, because honestly, like, if you line it up generally, it'll be good enough. And so as you can see, there's 3 sheets wide for like the front side of the leg and then 3 sheets for the back side of the leg. This pattern, it's really nice because it's only 3 different pattern pieces that you need to cut out. So front, back, drawstring. But it definitely did take a while. I am just gonna speed up the video a little bit here because we do not need to see me cutting in real time. It took literal ages. But enjoy me cutting out my pattern before we get the next step of actually lining it up on my fabric and cutting it out. Okay, now that I have my whole pattern piece for each of my legs, so front, back, and then the drawstring, I went ahead and put my fabric down on the floor and started pinning it down. Somehow I could not find my pin cushion for the life of me, so I had to use this box of pins, which was a little bit annoying to be like reaching into and out of to grab pins. I definitely stabbed myself more than a few times, but we just go ahead, pin it down, grab some fabric scissors, and cut out the patterns. For this one, I really wanted the stripes of the gingham to be lined up well, so I did my best to align the bottom pant edge and the top pant edge so that they would be as horizontal and vertical as possible. Honestly, because the gingham is relatively small, it is pretty easy to disguise any of the lack of perfect horizontalness. So I'm very grateful that I chose this fabric. But after doing the first pant leg, like the front parts, I went ahead and then switched to doing the back parts. As you can see, these are relatively simple pattern pieces, so they're pretty easy to cut out. Just making sure to follow the curves and cut along where the seam allowance lines are. Now that I have both parts of the pant legs, next is doing the waistband, which is literally just for the drawstring. So I cut out 2 times this drawstring pattern piece. We're pretty much making bias tape ourselves. So if you have a different preferred way of cutting it out, honestly, I could have just cut along the lines of the gingham, but I just wanted to be safe, make sure I was following the pattern perfectly. So I just followed this pattern piece and cut out these 2 pieces to be used as drawstring. I definitely recommend this pattern to beginners because it was really simple pattern pieces, really simple sewing. Honestly, the ironing part and the pattern making were the parts that took the longest and were like the most tedious parts to do. But as you can see, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of fabric that then get constructed into the pants. Okay, so now that all the pattern pieces were cut out, it's time to actually make holes for the drawstrings to come out the front of the pants. So I just went ahead and used my sewing machine foot that's meant for buttonholes. I found a button that's approximately the size of the hole I wanted, put it in, lined it up, and let it do its thing and sew a buttonhole into my pants. I am so grateful that my sewing machine does this automatically. Buttonholes by hand sound very tedious and difficult, and as you can see, I literally just line up the foot and start the machine, and it does everything that it needs to do itself. For this pant leg, it was just like a little bit heavier the way it was positioned, so I helped hold the fabric up so it wasn't pulling down or anything. But once both those buttonholes are sewn, just taking a stitch ripper, stitch ripping the middle part, and it's perfect. Now the drawstring has somewhere to come through. Okay, now that we have the buttonholes added so that we can actually have holes for the drawstring, next I went ahead and sewed along the crotch of the front of the pants. It's just doing that curved part. I started by doing a straight stitch with 1 centimeter of seam allowance, and then I went back and did a zigzag stitch along the edge just so it wouldn't fray or anything. The pattern recommended serging, but I don't own a serger, so zigzag stitch going off the edge will have to do. And now that I've done the whole edge, I can now do the crotch of the other side of the pants, so the back. Literally the exact same thing, doing a straight stitch and then a zigzag stitch. Now that I've done those, I am going to go ahead and put the right sides together for the pants and just go ahead and stitch along the edge. Again, for all of these stitches, I'm doing a straight stitch and then I am doing a zigzag stitch. golden sunlight. If I'm going with you, I know we'll get to the other side. Sinking in, I know this feels right. Catching a crazy love moving through me like a wildfire, like a wildfire. Okay, and then once I've gone ahead and done both of the side seams of the pants, I then need to do the middle seam that goes along the inner parts of the leg to the crotch, and again, just doing a straight stitch and then a zigzag stitch again. So super beginner friendly, super simple pattern to follow. Golden sunlight. If I'm going with you, I know we'll get to the other side. Sinking in, I know this feels right. Catching a crazy love moving through me like a wildfire, like a wildfire. Okay, so here's a sneak peek of how the pants were looking when I tried them on without any elastic. So let's get started on the waistband so that we can actually cinch them in and they're wearable. So I made the mistake of, before I did the zigzag stitch along the raw edge, ironing it. I would recommend doing that first, just so that you're not having to unfold it to sew it along the edge and then refolding it to sew. But it worked, it just wasn't as crisp. So I went ahead and ironed down so that I had enough space along the top to put in my elastic. And of course, making sure that the amount of space you're leaving, one, makes sense for the width of your elastic that you're putting in the waistband, but also with the positioning of the holes for the drawstring. Okay, so as I discussed before, having to go back, fixing the edge with a zigzag stitch going off of it so that it doesn't fray. And then finally getting to actually sewing the waistband, I went ahead and sewed along the edge where it was folded over. Okay, and now before I can insert the elastic into the waistband, I went and did a zigzag stitch along the edge to help it from fraying also. And then I may have forgot to record, but I shoved the elastic through the waistband so that I could then zigzag stitch it together and then close the gap along the waistband. Okay, and then I'll save you from watching the whole construction of the tie for the waistband, but pretty much I went ahead and ironed it so that there were only raw edges encapsulated in the center, giving me nice clean edges for my drawstring so that I could just press it flat and then send it through my sewing machine. So lots of sewing, but luckily just in a straight line. I just kept my drawstring lined up with the edge and super simple, sent it through my machine. Okay, now all that's left to do is hem the pants. I went ahead, tried them on, folded them up, thought about what I wanted lengthwise. I decided to do approximately 2 inches folded up so that they would be just above the ground while I was in shoes and almost skimming the ground when I'm not in shoes. And so I just went ahead and pressed it and then am sewing along the edge. Here is the final product. I love how the pants turned out. They are great, baggy, flowy, and I love the pink gingham pattern. The drawstring is also super nice because then I can tighten the pants if I want to, even though there's already elastic. Thank y'all so much for watching, and let me know what you want to see sewed next, and if you're sewing anything off your Pinterest boards. Bye!